Ian with double I. Very welcome to Spotlight
Sure.
Fridays. Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. Do you know that you are the lucky last guest for this year? So we're not,
Really? Oh, well, I'll
yeah,
take that as an honor then. Thank you very much.
no. The honor is all mine. You're so well known in the community, and you're such a great guy. I had the pleasure meeting you in person at Retail Fest, and we were on the panel together. So that's how we got introduced. And I really liked your. You're super helpful. You've got an amazing personality, and you're very intelligent and very smart. But you're also very quirky and have a very different way of looking at things. So I just want to unpack that a little bit for our community and focus on the problems that you help solving.
Thank you very much. The compliment check is in the post. I appreciate that. If you could write that down as a summary for me, that would be really good because then I could just use it in my bio. Yeah,
Listen, my
thanks.
friend, we're
Yeah.
recording this, so you can use it
Oh, well, there we go.
anytime.
We're good. Yeah, we're good. There's a win-win. Yeah, look, I just quite like helping people. I get a real kick out of it, to be honest. I really enjoy learning something. I'm quite curious, and when I work out how to do something, I just like to show other people and help them do it. It's not. I don't think I've ever consciously done it. It was just quite natural. Like, for example, when I started working for myself, I kind of went from running big teams to it being sort of like just me. And I remember working out in Meta how you could see in-store sales based on anybody that's seen an ad on Meta. And I was so happy that I managed to connect these two things together. And normally you turn around and tell somebody in the office, you're like, oh, there's nobody here. So I'm just going to write this on LinkedIn and just essentially be like an oversharer. Um, it's as simple as that, to be quite honest. That's just kind of my approach.
Beautiful, and it comes through in all your posts. And I know you're very active on the e-commerce community as well. And you are, I wouldn't say it oversharing, but it's you're very
I would,
generous
I would definitely
with
say
your
oversharing.
insights.
That's my
Oh,
go-to is oversharing.
very practical.
Yeah.
So, okay, I do want to touch on consulting part because we had a great conversation when we caught up face to face about the what led you to it and the motivation and how you figure it out that it's okay to consult in the world where no one, I don't think many people were consulting that time. How long has it been, by the way?
2018, so just over
Okay.
7 years now.
Yeah, it's a long time in
Yeah.
the consulting world. Okay, we'll touch on that a little bit later, but I just want to dive into more of the problems that you're solving. So, you've had a very exciting career. You were running e-commerce for major brands and running your own store as well. What's the biggest mindset shift leaders need to make to run an online business profitably today?
I think it depends where they're coming from. So what I've seen a lot throughout my career is that good retail businesses are still the same. The fundamentals are still the same. Gross margin's really important. Managing your expenses, doing a good buy, all those sort of like bits and pieces. And what I've seen multiple times is sort of that people go, "Hey, that's the physical retail, and then this is e-commerce, and they're two separate teams, and the two separate teams have got two different goals, and the retailers in a traditional sense, I don't know a better name for them, sort of think that this e-commerce thing is like this totally different thing, and that there's things that they don't understand, so they go, and that e-commerce thing over there. It's like you're still selling to the same people, you're just selling in a slightly different way. And I understand why that mentality is there, because the whole marketing industry is hyped up to go, hey, here's a new shiny thing, and if you're not doing this, you are behind, and if you don't understand this, you are a dinosaur, forget it. You're like, let's just go back to the fundamentals here. So for example, the way that I run e-commerce businesses with the owners is we've just got a really clear set of numbers that's a combination of a P&L and a marketing report, but they're all hard numbers. They actually mean something. So it's the amount of website visitors, the gross margin, the profit, how much is spent on advertising, etc. And anytime we've got a problem, we just go back to that and we go, okay, cool, where's the problem? What's going on now? What's the thing that's most likely to solve that problem? For example, if your visitors are down year on year or week on week and there's like a really big drop, like, okay, what levers can we pull to increase that? Is it a case of increasing ad spend? Is it that more emails need to go out? What is it? Rather than going, I think it's this, I think it's this, I think it's this, I think it's this. It's so I think to answer that question succinctly is that it's just keep the fundamentals the same online as they are offline, and the two just sort of like join together. It's literally as simple as that.
It's so common. I had a dilemma back in my corporate career where the MDs of each brand, because it was a group and it was a conglomeration of many brands, and we had a decentralized structure where the MDs were owning the brand, and the digital and loyalty and marketing structures at some point was centralized. And there was that dismissiveness around the online store, regardless how many millions of dollars it generated in revenue. And I used to tell them that, yes, we are one of many of your stores, but we happen to be a number one store. So probably it's not a bad idea to pay attention and take it into consideration as well. So yes, I totally agree. I actually don't even know if it exists today, because online stores are, in general, they outperforming the physical stores, obviously because of the sheer traffic and the conversion rate. But yes, that's definitely, I came across that before.
Yeah, it's super common. I remember in one of my first retail jobs back in the UK, they were opening up all these stores, spending loads of money like doing stores, physical stores, and I just wanted to add filters to the website. I know that sounds really basic now because it's a really simple thing. This was quite a long time ago, and it was gonna cost sort of like quite a bit. Like I seem to remember like £10,000 or something like that, which was kind of like a lot to put filters on. But there was literally no conversation. There was no budget sort of like for doing those types of things because all the stores are happening. It's like, but we're growing this thing. It's like it's kind of like doing this, and like, can we just get a little bit of investment sort of like over here? And because the owner was a traditional retail person who I learned a huge amount from, great respect for, just didn't quite get it. And put it in this bucket of this is the thing I don't get, rather than, oh, what is that? How does that work? That's that. Anyway.
Yeah, but that's why the curious mind, having a curious mind, is so good, because and asking those questions, because none of us know everything. And the traditional retailers, we can't blame them, because they can't
Yeah.
just become digital specialists overnight. And yeah, there's that. Um, there is a fine line. How
Yeah,
much
I
do you
mean,
need to know?
I wasn't born knowing this stuff. This is like when I teach people how to do Facebook ads. It's like I wasn't born knowing it. I've just gone and pressed some buttons and made a load of mistakes and gone try and sort of like join the dots together. Basically, it's like, I mean,
No.
I'm also quite lucky because I have the gift of dyslexia. So I'm a terrible speller, which is kind of hilarious because I've got an extra letter in my name, which makes it even more confusing. But it basically just means I'm a really good problem solver. So I just kind of go, right, what's like when something doesn't add up, you're like, that's not right. I don't know why it's not right, but I know it's not right. And you just become quite curious and go, why? Why is that? Why is that? And I will go down in a deep hole sometimes into something, which I think has just really helped me, to be honest. That's essentially I'm taking advantage of my disadvantage.
A gifted dyslexia. I've never heard anyone describing it like this. This is so good.
Well,
I'm going to label it.
it's funny. A good friend of mine actually, I remember telling him that I was dyslexic, and he was sort of like, you looked at me like he was expecting me to, not have the ability to talk or like walk or something like that. That it was like a real serious issue, and I think it's quite misunderstood. And still don't think there's a really good definition, but for me, it's just you think slightly different. So I tend to be very good at making the complicated things simple, but I will make the simple things so complicated it's almost hilarious. Like just real basic bits and pieces. It's just a different way of thinking. That's all it is.
And it is a gift as well. So, moving to your practicality and your practical advice that you're freely sharing, where do most retailers and brands you think get stuck? And which of these levers across CRO, ads, email marketing, cash flow, CX moves the needle first?
So it depends where they're at, of which lever you should then pull. So the way that I explain it is that imagine there's 100 levers in front of you. And for your individual business, there's going to be about 10 that you can pull that will give you control of the business. The trick is finding which of those 10. So there's 100. So, all the things you're naming, say like CRO, cash flow, whatever, gross margin, meta ads, blah, blah, whatever it is, right? There's all these kind of like levers. The trick is identifying which ones are likely to improve the business and then pulling the lever. Not like giving the lever a little nudge, like being pretty confident that, hey, our gross margin's really, really low, so we should talk to our suppliers and work out if we order more, can we get better terms, or can we shave a couple of points sort of like here and there. Let's really sort of like go for it, and then that will then improve the business. So it's very contextual. And the trick is understanding where you are. So there's this really good analogy of if you want to get somewhere, first of all, you've got to know where you are, because where you are to where you want to go, then you can work out the steps sort of like in between. So understanding where you are. I think where people get stuck is that there's so much noise out there of things that you should be doing. Like this awful word, should be doing. This is the new shiny thing. Like you should be doing this. You need to be sort of like all across this. Or, you know, you're not appearing in ChatGPT yet, and all these sort of like bits and pieces. And you're like, well, that's cool. But look at your gross margin over here. It doesn't matter if you appear in ChatGPT all the time if you're not getting those fundamental things right. And I think it's very easy to focus on the shiny object. As human beings, we like new. New is interesting to us, so we then want to go and look at it. And don't get me wrong, I get stuck in it sometimes as well. I'm like, oh, that's new and shiny. Like, I'm a real sucker for somebody does some really good marketing. I know I'm being marketed to, but I'm okay with that because I really appreciate the art of marketing. So it's actually just, again, it comes back to those fundamentals of just going, what's the actual core problem here? Is that, you know, are we getting enough people to the website? Are they spending enough average order value when they get there? Are we having more buyers than window shoppers? Like if people are not buying, if they're not pulling trigger, why sort of like is that? And then going, okay, what's the thing we need to focus on to solve that particular sort of problem rather than the new shiny one? And I see it all the time with marketing managers. They essentially just get a bit overwhelmed. I should be doing this. I should be doing this. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing this. It's like, get the fundamental things sorted. So in e-commerce, for me, say for like a traffic point of view, everybody's like, oh my God, should I run Pinterest ads? Should I need to be better on TikTok? I need to go and do these things. You're like, okay, cool. First of all, sort your Google ads out. Like that's like somebody walking into your store saying, let's say we're selling dog treadmills, just because I think they're silly. Somebody walking into your dog treadmill store and saying, do you have a dog treadmill? That's Google ads. You go, yes, we have dog treadmills. Here you go. Make sure you serve all those people first. Tick. Then you go to meta ads. Meta ads is like somebody's walking past your store and you're handing out a flyer and saying, are you interested in dog treadmills? Get that sorted, right? And then get your email marketing sorted and then get your SEO sorted for what SEO is these days, which is changing. Those kind of 4 things for an e-commerce business will pretty much, from a marketing point of view, get you 80% of where you need to be. If you don't have those bits sorted, get those bits done. Then go look at the other sort of like huge shiny sort of like bits and pieces.
On Dog's treadmill, does it exist or you just made it up?
So what happened was when I worked at a marketing agency, somebody came in and they were like, and they wanted our help, and they said, right, I've got the $1 million idea. This is the thing. And like, okay, cool. So what's this? It's like, I'm going to sell dog treadmills. I'm like, right, okay. And this was largely a search agency, sort of like at the time. Anyway, so he carries on explaining about what he's going to do. But it's not the actual dog treadmill, it's the replacement part for the dog treadmills. So when it was okay. And he was very set on that he wanted to do SEO. I think he thought SEO was all online marketing. And so we fire up Google ads and it will tell us how many people are searching for dog treadmills in a given amount of time. So we can make an estimate on how it's going to go. And at the time, it was like 10 searches a month in Australia. So, okay, if you get to number 1 position, you're going to get maybe 20% of the traffic coming through. So that's 2 visitors a month. And you probably convert maybe 1. No, let's go wild. Let's say 2%, right? So it's going to take you 4 years or something like that to kind of like make a sale. And I always give it as an example because it's good to explain demand sort of like within Google. But also I think it's really important you apply marketing rather than just saying it depends. It's like being able to get down to that. And it's just kind of stuck with me. I did a presentation for Shopify a couple of years ago when I first moved to Melbourne. And it was like 13 tips on e-commerce marketing going from easy to hard. And every single one was applied to dog treadmills, basically. It's kind of stuck with me, and I really like it because I just think it's silly. The interesting thing is that I think the search demand has now gone up for them, and somebody sent me a picture the other day of a business that sells dog treadmills, and they had like their van all with like all the stickers sort of like all over it and stuff like that. I'm just like, wow.
Oh, come on. You started it probably. That's why, because you mentioned that in all the presentations. So it just became this well-known keyword that people are now searching for. Just as well, I ask you this question because my dog is actually lying by my feet right now, and I'm just thinking there is no way in hell he's going to use treadmill. He is as tired as after an hour and a half walk this morning. But
Yeah.
anyway, that was interesting.
Yeah. It's a very American thing, I think. And then so a little bit of it sort of like comes over here.
Yeah, let's just get humans on treadmills sometimes. When it comes to paid media, what's the most common misunderstanding you think you see from founders and marketing teams?
They don't max out Google first. So everybody gets very excited about Instagram and Facebook ads because they're very visual, they're easy to see, they're kind of fun to make, and you hear all this hype around Meta ads and stuff like that. And they're easier to run than Google ads. It's a bit more sort of like straightforward. But they then just basically largely ignore Google. And the analogy I give, which I gave before, but I think it's worth giving again because I think it's a really good one, is Google Ads is like somebody walks into your store, asks for the product that you've got because they're literally searching for it. Go, have you got dog treadmill? Yes, we do. So, and there's this really good report that you can run within Google Ads that will tell you what percentage of people you're getting to that are searching for your product. So it's called search impression share. And it will tell you if you're getting to 30% of the market or 80% of the market or what have you. So if you're only getting to like 20% of the market or less than 10% of the market and you're making sales, you basically just go, okay, let's go sell to people that actually want the stuff that we've got rather than just trying to convince them of the stuff. That tends to be the smaller businesses. Again, they get sort of like pretty excited, sort of like with Meta ads. It's just one of those like no-brainer things that because it's not talked about as much and it seems a little bit more nerdy that people don't really sort of like get into. I think the other thing is that what people spend on marketing as well. I think it can get very sort of like carried away. Look, let's face it, Google and Meta are a bit of a mafia, and they've got the attention. So we need to use them, right? There's no choice.
Oh no, there is no choice.
Yeah, unless you've got the most incredibly strong brand that everybody sort of like knows about. I mean, even if you're Apple or Nike or something like that, they're still running ads, right? And it's actually just more about managing it. So it's very easy to keep turning things up, and essentially every little marker in Google Ads or Meta is, hey, if you spend more, you might do better. It's this constant sort of like hint, and people can get really carried away with it. Whereas you have to manage it based on what your gross margin is. So if you've got a really high gross margin, like say 80% or something like that, for me, gross margin includes all your variable costs. So like your afterpay fees, your international freight, all these bits, shipping, all these bits and pieces, not just the cost of goods, right?
GST.
If you've got a really high gross margin, you can afford to spend a lot more on ads.
Exactly.
But if your gross margin's a lot lower, you can only spend sort of like a little bit on it or sort of like less. And it's managing that as a percentage of your net revenue. So it's often called marketing efficiency ratio or MER. And it's a key number that I look at with everybody that I work with, just to make sure that we're not overspending, but we're not underspending. So say, for example, say you've got a gross margin of 50% and you're spending like 5% on ads and you're not growing. You're probably leaving some money on the table. So you can then, you've got the ability to turn it up. And again, this comes down to those levers. It's working out the individual context of what you can afford to spend and still be profitable. Or do you want to grow a bit more because you've got fixed costs, context dependent. But then if you were maybe spending 40% and your gross margin only 15%, that's only leaving you with 10% left to pay everybody and God forbid, make any sort of like type of profit. So you might be overspending in that. And it's getting that individual number and then kind of managing that, for me, pretty much on a weekly basis, because if you look at it daily, it will sort of like fluctuate. So having the control over that, I think, has been a real key thing for me over the last decade or so.
You actually answered my next question that I wanted to ask you about profitability. So well done. You're probably sitting in my head. Don't. But who is that person who looks at those numbers within the brand? Do you think?
That is a very good question, and I think that's where quite a few businesses will struggle, because if you're, like a marketing manager, or you're running paid ads or something like that, they're not necessarily the numbers that you've been exposed to and then look at. It might be like the CFO or the accountant or the financial planner or the owner. The trick is bringing it all together in one place where everybody can see it. That's the thing, because I remember being a young marketer, and we were running lots of Google ads, and we went on sale, and everything went off. It just like went sort of like nuts, and I was like, "Look at me, I'm doing amazing! Look at my revenue! It's sort of like going up," thinking that I'm the best thing sort of like in the world. Anyway, I get pulled into the boardroom by the owner. It's sort of like the first day of the following month is like, "This is how much you've spent on ads, and this is the discount, and this is the profit that we've made. We basically haven't made any profit. We've just churned through sort of like a load of stock." And I remember being really defensive at the time, because I was just like, "No, we've done a great job," because I didn't understand the impact of that. And so being able to connect those things together, I think, is really, really key. And so your question is a very good one, of like, who's responsible for it. I personally think everybody should have visibility on that, that's having an impact on it. So I think marketers should be across that to see. I think marketers should know what their gross margin is, ideally by product, and certainly by category, so that when they run a promotion, they know not to over discount. It's definitely a challenge. Definitely, I think
Yes,
that,
it is.
yeah. And I think the bigger the business, the kind of the harder it is to do. I tend to work with those sort of smaller businesses, but I've always been a fan of being very open about the numbers. I think it's everybody has to have the same incentive to work towards. If the owner's got this incentive of working towards being profitable, but then the marketer's got a goal of working towards the revenue, it's not aligned, right? Yeah, everybody's got to be working towards the same thing.
No, for sure. I agree. But I always say that if everyone owns it, no one does. So that it has to sit with one person. And the bigger the organization, I think it's the CMO's role. And these days, it's very, very challenging. I actually feel sorry for these people, because they need to be across absolutely everything:
Yeah.
financial part, the marketing, the performance, the conversion, everything and anything. So they are the jacks of all trades. But if it's a smaller organization, it's up to probably the owners to decide if it's the head of digital or the head of marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it depends if you're a numbers person or not, because there's some marketers that are
True.
numbers people, there's some marketers that are kind of more creative people, and they don't kind of lean to like into that. But yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, somebody has to, the buck has to stop with somebody.
For sure, but everyone needs to know the numbers. Absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So you worked inside big retailers, and now advise to many as a consultant. And I'm delighted you're a consultant, by the way, because that means that more brands can reciprocate from your amazing knowledge that you've accumulated over the years, and your oversharing part as well. What's something internal teams don't see from the inside, but becomes very obvious once you are on the outside looking in, you
Oh,
think?
a lot of time it is the numbers. Yeah, I know we're kind of coming sort of like back to that, but that's the first thing that I'll go and look at, because that will, honestly, through a set of numbers, I can tell how well a business is doing or what the potential is. So if you've got something that's got a business that's got a really high gross margin and really good conversion rate, you're like, this is on. If it's the opposite, you just like, you're really going to struggle. And the internal teams are doing all these things. They're going, "Oh, we're posting loads on Instagram. We're doing all these things. We're doing," it's like you're just spinning your sort of like wheels here. I think I've been quite fortunate, because I've worked in multiple different roles. And so you get to see the business metrics, but you're also really hands-on within sort of like the marketing, but then also ordering inventory. It's joining those things together. Once it's connecting the dots, basically. And you can come in and then say, "Hey, what's going over here?" And when something doesn't quite add up, it's like, "What's going on over there?" And you keep sort of like pushing. I think you also get around you're not as involved with the internal politics of the business. To be fair, I mean, I tend to work with SMEs, so there's not that much sort of like of it, but there's kind of these little things that, "Oh, we can't do this because of this," or to do it's like, but you come in and you ask the question, it's like, "Well, why?" Like, why can't we do that? Like, or yeah, I think that's you get people to look at it through a fresh set of eyes, and you can show them potentially what it can be, rather than them getting stuck.
I agree. And you think, they all sit on a lot of numbers, and it's remarkable how little they stitch it together so that these numbers can tell the story.
But
And
this
yeah,
is
it's easier for us to see because we ask lots of questions, we're inquisitive, we don't get distracted by BAU and the whole noise of things. So that's, yeah, so but I agree with you. The numbers are,
but it's a hard thing to find, isn't it? Because I literally
yeah,
just built a spreadsheet. There's some really good tools like Profit Peak that pull all the bits and pieces sort of like together,
love profit pick.
right? But then you've got to know where to go and get those, and you don't know if you can you don't know what sources you can actually trust, and unless you've had the experience of getting it wrong and going, actually, I've made decisions. I used to make all my decisions on Google Analytics because that's what I knew. I grew up sort of like being geeky, and it's like, no, that's the source of truth. And then I realized quite early on that, oh, wait a second, this back end system that we're using, CRM, ERP, whatever they're calling it, that's how the decisions are being made, and those two will never line up, like, ever. It's like, okay, cool, this says this says this. We've got to work out what's the discrepancy between the two. So, okay, we're about 90% accurate here, but we can get sort of like the information a little bit quicker. Again, that's just through making a load of mistakes, like selling too much stuff and going, oh, Google Analytics says we're going great, we're good.
That's so true. Let's circle back to your consulting journey because I think you have a very good story to share. What made you start your business, and what was the moment you realized that could actually work for you whilst you were busy surfing? I think.
Yeah, so where to start? I think I've always wanted to work for myself, but I could just never work out how to do it because I always had a job and had the salary and those types of bits and pieces. And when I was in the UK, when I was moving to Australia, I kind of considered working for myself in the UK, but I wanted to leave the UK. I wanted to come to Australia. And so it's going to be pretty hard to work for myself. I ended up at a great agency, working with those guys. Amazing. Was there for 6 years. Ended up going from like doing the strategy stuff to running the business for the owners. It was awesome, amazing experience, taught me loads. I then wanted to get into remote working. So this was 2016. And I remember reading about it, I'm like, that just seems great. That's just the way forward. Like, we can get more people and they don't have to be commuting distance. Anyway, the business wasn't interested in sort of like doing that. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go sort of like pursue it. And so this is all before COVID, so there wasn't remote working really wasn't that much of a thing here. And I remember I'd go to the library every Tuesday night to just go and look for jobs. And I think in 3 months, I only came across 3 remote marketing related jobs. And one of them was the chief marketing officer for a Bulgarian web hosting company. And I was like, okay, did the interviews and sort of like met them. A big company, like 500 people, met them. And, I'm like, okay, all right, so I'm going to leave this really good job that I've got here in Australia to go work for some Bulgarian guys. Okay, cool. Let's go. Let's go and do this. Let's give it a nudge. So work for those guys, and let's just say there were some cultural differences, and leave it at that.
I remember this story.
Yes, yeah. They ended up sacking me, which was I was like, okay, right. And I remember being on the phone, and we were in Madrid at the time because we were traveling around doing the remote thing. I remember talking to a good friend of mine. It's like, have you thought about like just kind of doing like the fractional thing where you work for a couple of sort of like different businesses? And I was like, yeah, I kind of have. And so instead of having one client that I wasn't getting along with, I was like, well, what if I have 5? And then it's kind of a bit more sort of like modular. You get the variety, but you also get the balance, and you get the stability, and you can then get rid of them, etc., like that. So yeah, so that's what I basically started doing. That was September 2018, and it was super nerve-wracking. It was really nerve-wracking because when I first left university, I started working as a website designer, and I made so little money that I didn't have to pay tax. So I didn't hit the threshold of, so what's that in Australia, like 19 grand or something like that? I can't remember what it was in the UK at the time. So I was petrified of doing it, but I was like, this is my chance. This is the opportunity to go and do it. Let's go. And I think it took about 2 or 3 months. And I just had this moment of realization where I was like, everybody I was talking to was like, yeah, we'd love to work with you. That'd be great. Because I kind of built this network of people. And I remember turning to my wife and saying, it was about October time, I think, October, November time. I was like, I think this is going to work. I think this is going to like really go. And I'll never forget, she turned to me and said, I don't know why you're surprised. You used to do this for other people for multiples and millions of dollars. And you're surprised that it's kind of like working for you on your own. I was like, yep, all right, yep, that's fair. It's because I wasn't backing myself as hard because I felt sort of like a bit down. And then I was like, yeah, here we go. And it's honestly, it's been life changing for me. It's just the flexibility it's given me, the people that I get to work with, the people that I get to meet, the projects that I get to sort of like to work on. So much so that I love helping other people do it because I get jealous. I'm just like, oh, you're going to go through this really good bit where you get to realize what you're going to do, and it's a bit scary and all these other sort of like bits and pieces. So yeah, that's how I ended up consulting. I also realized I don't actually consult, I technically contract, because I have this thing where I realize working for SMEs that people like good ideas, but they pay for action. So I have this reminder that I tick off every single day that is literally that. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, what's getting sort of like done? And I've found that being back on the tools has helped me so much with the bigger picture stuff, because you can go from idea to implementation really quickly. You don't get sort of like stuck around sort of like, oh, there's this kind of gotcha sort of like here. I much prefer it. I really, really do. It's, yeah.
Yes, likewise. Yes, it does. We attach operational efficiency to it. Otherwise, for consultancy, for me, that's what it means, that ideation stage and the operational stage as well, to make sure that it does happen, and we work alongside the teams as well. So and it gives a bigger satisfaction, I suppose, to us, that we can see it happens, and how it transforms as well.
Yeah.
I have one more question before we wrap up. If you had to leave retailers with one simple rule that improves both CX and profit, what would it be?
I think it's know the ratios of the numbers and the relationship between them. That will tell you so much stuff. Like a bit of a revelation for me was in business is just understanding those ratios. So for example, in e-commerce, and all credit to Paul Waddy, who's an amazing e-commerce coach as well. So we're going to talk about this, like this 50-30-20 ratio. So of your revenue, like get your GST, that's not ours, that's like the government's, 50% gross margin, 30% operating expenses, 20% net profit. Or everything kind of falls into one of those sort of like buckets. And then you can go, right, okay, my issue here is that my operating expenses are too high. How do I get that lower? Is it increasing revenue or what have you? Understanding those ratios is absolutely key. And the more people you can talk to in your industry and learn about those things, the further you'll get. It's the key to unlocking everything. It's not going viral on TikTok.
This is a brilliant way to wrap it up. I love this. This is the best. Ian, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Love the ratio, by the way. Knowing the numbers is sufficient. Being transparent with the team about the numbers so that they know the numbers and they know what they're meant to deliver. It's also very, very helpful. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who joined us live. We really appreciate you. Thank you for all your support this year. I wish everyone a very successful and wonderful festive season, and we'll see you next year. We have a few conversations locked in already. Thank you very much for joining us, Ian. I'm so grateful for this conversation. It's not the last one. I think the next one we're going to talk about numbers a little bit more, because 2026 is definitely going to be a transformational year for many brands.
Thank you for the